So welcome back everyone to this second set of papers that we have at this Early Career Researchers Conference on Bhutan development and resilience. And in the morning, we heard papers on Bhutan's digitalization, on plant seed saving practices and intellectual property rights, and on the ways in which the performance management system for the civil services can be gaming responses within that can be addressed. In this set of papers, we have again a different set of a different kind of range of themes, and we will begin now with Kezang Wangdi, who will be presenting on Mangi, the ritual on community prosperity, and we will have Tashidema as the discussant for the paper. Thank you to all of the presenters until now and those who are going to present. And our apologies in that we are overrunning the time limit. However, given that we have had a different length of papers from the start, it didn't seem possible to stop the presentations in the interests of imposing a standard format. However, thank you so much for your patience, and this is a learning journey, and these are our researchers who are taking their steps on towards that, and we are all here in the interests of a collaborative peer review. So it's not always the numbers that matter, it's also the nature of the discussions, and I hope that you're finding them interesting. So with that, I will request Kezang Wangdi to please begin the presentation. Thank you so much.
Good afternoon, good morning, all the participants and the people in here. In the interest of time, so directly going to my topic, which is the Mangi, which loosely transliterates to ritual to appease local disease, and all the partners and individuals involved in making this presentation, and for giving me this opportunity. So I'm really honored to be one of the participants here. To proceed, it's a ritual, kind of an animistic in nature, and also sometimes we call it a shamanistic ritual, or something which involves sacrificing some animal lives. It's about that, so which I actually co-authored with Mr. Dorji as my co-author. So okay, the background of ritual. So firstly, I would like to start with the location for those who might not know where. So I am actually trying to target with my topic. It's this is the map of Bhutan, and it falls somewhere in the southwestern part of Bhutan, under the district called Davana. So it is from the headquarters of the district. It's 22 kilometers away from the district, and it falls under a village, a very kind of in terms of size, it's an average sized village with some 55 households whose people are of the mixed ethnic groups of Dagap. The people here call them as Dagap Ngalops and also Losampas, and approximately with 400 people in total. So that's where in the rest of the exact 15 minutes I would be taking you through. So as far as the trees where the ritual actually started is concerned, it's about according to the oral tradition by especially the chief priest, the one who actually initiates or kind of presides over the ritual, is that the ritual dates back to as early as 17th century. And that was the time or the century in which Bhutan was actually blessed to have been stepped into our soil by the founding or the unifying father of Bhutan, Shabdung Awan Namgyal, and at precious jewel at whose feet one submits. It's being translated as something like that in English. So what happened during those time was, so immediately after he came to Bhutan, he issued his edict, his command to human beings, especially the local, the petty, the local chieftains, the petty rulers in different parts of Bhutan, uh, and also to the non-human objects like not exactly object, but non-human elements like spirits and even the inanimate objects like big rocks, rivers, cliffs, and big trees, in which we believe even now, some sections of our society, that there lived or live some unforeseen or invisible forces. So that's when the animistic or the belief kind of a system actually started, and still we can see across the country in communities all sorts of those things being practiced. As a result of which, uh, he actually also instituted or established a theocratic government, which is also a dual system of government, with the political and the religious affairs being given to two different leaders under him, respectively. So by which the people from different communities and walks of life actually had to contribute as taxes, different kinds of commodities, including rice, I mean grains, and even animals, even meat, and so on and so forth. So the people of this community actually, uh, they are of the view that their forefathers in those centuries actually paid a special tax on top of all those that I've mentioned above. Elephants actually task, which almost considered as equal to jewel, the evidence which is in, even now if you go to our big monasteries and temples in across the country, we can see the tusk, elephant tusks, big ones being adorned uh, across the, I mean, like on the altar of our, which we call here as the Chesham. So we can see those things being practiced even now. So which actually is also evident that this object was considered very precious. So this community was well known for paying this on top of all the taxes. So therefore, so this was the former capital under the theocratic government. This is called Punakha. So even it stands magnificently now. So there were also three different strong the governors, regional governors of the regions of Trongsa, Paro, and Dagana. So when the three governors occasionally met in this capital, actually, and you can see on the right hand side, you can see the big stair leading up into the fort, actually the fort. So you can see that the stair being divided into three parts here. So what I'm trying to see here is when the three governors met here, the governor of this district, Dagana, by a virtue of the community, the people of this Khagochen community, whose ritual we are talking about, paid the elephant task, which is so symbolic and precious. He will be given the central stair here to walk off into the fort. So those are some of the oral stories going around in the village or village where this ritual is being conducted. So it's very interesting actually. So with that background, now I would like to talk a little bit about how the ritual is conducted, just a gist of how it happens. Actually, ritual happens for 2 straight days, conducted on the dates mentioned here, the 11th day of the 11th month of lunar calendar and 4th and 7th months respectively. So those were considered to be some of the auspicious days on which they've actually conducted, or even now they do the ritual. So the first day, on the first day, the ritual happens on a piece of land. It's the permanent land where they conduct the ritual, in which every household, without being forced, even when sometimes they feel they were being fined, but what's happening is household on most occasions or on most years do not have to be forced, because as I would mention later on some of the advantages or why they do ritual. There are a lot of advantages, or maybe like some benefits they actually reap from the ritual. Therefore, for various reasons, household or people do not have to be forced to actually take up the initiative of conducting the ritual here. So the ritual on second day sees, I mean the first day, so I'm still on first day. So on first day, what happens is the ritual, the chief priest actually presides the ritual where every village, a minimum of one person from each household attends on that particular ground. And as early as 2 a.m. in the morning, the ritual takes off actually. And it involves the chief priest actually chanting various verses. Because of the time constraint, I could not bring them out here in this presentation. And also the highlight of the day is that a rooster and a hen, a male and a female hen, are being actually sacrificed to please those three deities, which they say are most important of all the deities. They say there are many deities they actually pleases on that day. And people would engage themselves in helping the priests. Some would engage themselves in dancing. Some would be serving, and some people who additionally come towards the later day. I mean, when after the ritual takes starts over, are being served with locally brewed wine, liquor, and food, and all kinds of almost like enjoyment. So they do all sorts of things. And on the second day, what happens is they gather near a lake, a small lake, which is still there. And because of its importance, the local leaders have actually at least taken initiative to maybe give it a very decent fencing to preserve the lake. And on that lake, they gather, especially the beautiful women who are considered to be virgin, unmarried, not married, with beautiful traditional dresses, and they dance the whole day the traditional songs to please the mermaid, which they believe resides in that lake. And the reason the ritual stretch out to second day is to please the mermaid, because they believe those three deities which they actually pleased on the first day are being directly connected to all kind of the mermaid is their consort or wife, kind of a thing. So that's how they believe. So that's why they had to actually also dedicate another day for the pleasing of the mermaid on that lake. So that's how the ritual takes place. So each household contribute for the ritual. So they actually contribution in kinds of kinds and cash. They also contribute grains, wine, different kinds of commodities, different kinds of objects which they think are precious and which they think are deserving, or maybe like which they do not use on their daily basis at home. So those things actually they contribute. And also, as I've said before, those who sometimes fail to attain or contribute are imposed with certain fines, because that speaks a lot about how important the ritual is in their community. So interestingly, the local government officials, the Mangi and the Tsokpa, who are the village headmen, the next in command to him, and also the next in command to the second one, they have no roles in this ritual, despite being the leaders in the locality. So this is very interesting thing, because it speaks of some very important the significance of ritual. And what happens is people themselves take up the initiative. When the time comes, it's for the people to discuss, and they actually, the households take turn to host, coordinate, and conduct rituals. So this is a chief priest who, when I recorded this paper or interview, was already 98 years old. He must have been now already a century old, 100 years old now. So for which I will also come later on why I'm mentioning this age. Now, with that being the background and the conduct or the coordination or the proceeding of the ritual in brief. So now is the time for me to take you through some of the highlights of why I actually applied, or kind of which is why I'm being selected for this presentation, is that I want the people to know some of the significances of this ritual. which is very important for especially people in the country all across to know. The first one is ritual is a source of livelihood and prosperity. So they take up the ritual without fail. No household actually, on most occasions, on most times, don't fail to participate or contribute for the conduct of ritual, because that's their livelihood, and they believe they get a lot of prosperity, they get good health, and they get a lot of uh, grains, good harvest, they get rain on time. When these three rituals are being conducted for 1 year, that's when they feel that something, that their livelihood for the rest of the year has been taken care of. It is also one bonding force of community, vitality, identity, and spirituality. People of all walks in life, and even the kids and the relatives who have gone to different towns and for whatever reason, for employment, for some other reasons, would make a point to come back to their village and attend that ritual. And that is the time when people see each other who they haven't for a long time. And that's kind of an cooperation, community vitality. They're reminded of their culture, they're reminded of their identity and spirituality. And also, it is their tradition there. That tradition is what makes their community different from the rest of the community. The ritual also enhances interconnection between human and non-human world, as I've spoken before initially. So it is on major portion the connection between the people in the community with that of those which they even do not see, but who they believe are helping them live prosperous life there. That's being served by the conduct of the ritual. And there is also for like people, even like people of us who are right now listening to me, of course, the source of knowledge of what kind of lives happened in the past, and that in the past too much dependent on the natural environment, and that is ultimately about the coexistence with nature, the natural elements. And as a result, of course, people do not feel the burden of contributions levied for all those the reasons I've mentioned above. The people do not feel the burden of contributions in terms of the physical level, in terms of vacation kinds whatsoever. So these are some of the significances of the ritual as per the people down in that community. So it also nonetheless brings people living in different places, as I've already talked about, all those family whose relatives and kids and children have gone to other towns, if they're doing some other kind of a business or jobs anywhere, would come back on that day or on those 3 days on different occasions in that year, would come back and they join with their community, and that's how the community actually happens. So also community vitality. Now, there are also certain challenges that the ritual is actually facing, particularly the community. So in 2017, they tried to replace the animals which were being sacrificed with some other replacements, some other better options, which they did was they actually tried to use eggs as in place of the live animals, a live rooster and a hen. But that following the ritual, they felt their answer of needing rain and that their need for the bountiful harvest, and they also felt villagers were feeling sick, and they also felt some kind of unhappiness actually crept their community, for which they actually again reinstated or started bringing the old culture of sacrifices. So this is some of the challenge. So most people in the village are against animal sacrifice as being either by being open to scientific kind of objective reality, what I'm trying to say is because we know those are kind of animistic or which has no ground to believe. People know this, but still, then when they do that, they feel back at their mind, they feel something is happening. So for which they are not able to actually do away with that culture of animal sacrifice, even after being uh, kind of receiving a kind of a backlash or criticism from different religious or as well as the different societies. Another challenge is with most youth moving out to looking for different or better opportunities because of as I mentioned in the last point, because of the education, and they get employed somewhere else, and that's where they actually start their family, and they hardly come back to their community or village, and that's when maybe like in few decades, in even a decade or two, there won't be people who would be taking this ritual forward. That's one uh, challenge the rituals actually the community is facing in terms of the continuity of the ritual. Also, people having to contribute is sort of a burden. Not uh, people do not feel that burden, but that's because they believe that something is because they gain something, health, a good harvest, rain, but whatever they have, even when they do not have much, they would maybe like search from here and there, maybe like they would take a loan from some other household, and that's how they actually make a point to contribute. But that it's on the flip side of the coin, that's a burden, and maybe that also must be contributing to being one of the challenges of the continuity of the ritual. And the modern medicines, in terms of the health they believe the ritual is giving them. So now people are of the view that because of the scientific advancement, especially in terms of the health and education, people are actually starting to look at the aspects of the ritual with a skeptic mind. Maybe they are trying to, maybe they are starting to caution now. If that is really happening, that is also one of the challenges. So these are indeed some of the challenges the ritual is facing. So local customs and traditions are integral aspect of our community. So all in all, these are some of the challenges. And now to conclude, so as a writer of the article, so I found this ritual are very much part and parcel of their community. So local customs and traditions are integral aspects of our communities, as it is the case with the rest of the communities in Bhutan and also elsewhere around the world. These local customs and traditions are what keeps people actually interwoven with themselves, their livelihood, and with various forces of even nature and in the society. So there are also some traits of similarity. The similarities in traits and conduct of rituals, despite being practiced in different communities and regions. And paper has also found out that there are also in some other communities, apart from this one I'm talking about, that there are similar rituals of little slight difference in nature being conducted across the country, which are actually signifying of the heavy or the intense animistic or the belief of shamanism being practiced in the past. The ritual, this particular ritual in this community is also means to bring back all members of the family. It would be a repetition if I talk again, but it talks about the bringing back all the people together and actually improving or enhancing the family, the bond. Its community vitality is also huge. When people gather together, when all the people gather together, that's when they talk about different ideas. That's when they try to contribute to helping one or two households which are in need of uh, 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 both cash and kind, and that's how they actually try to lift each other. So while preserving the age-old culture, sense of oneness and cooperation is also promoted. So this is also repetition. So as I've already talked about, they cooperate each other in a more effective and meaningful way when people gather together. And that happens twice a year and 6 times in 2 years. And as it goes on, so these are the things, some of the things that actually are actually happening as far as ritual is the advantage of ritual is concerned. So with that, maybe, so I don't know if I made it out clear, and that's it about my topic. And this particular topic or the paper is purely my own observation of the ritual and going out into the community and meeting people, and it in any way actually doesn't anyway doesn't represent the views of where I work actually. And also uh, the ritual is very rich in actually in terms of how it actually brings people together and also enhances the community vitality. And I'm very thankful once again for the organizer for giving me this opportunity.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Kezang, for your paper. Can everyone? I can somehow see Kezang's screen. Is that what everyone else is also seeing? Yes, now it's yes. Now I can see you, Kezang. Thank you so much for your presentation. I mean, I think that it's very useful to us that you told us that you're not doing this as an anthropologist working on a project. You are doing this as a result of your own thought process. And I think that's really interesting that, if we think enough about our surroundings, then we are all capable of being wild anthropologists in the wild, as it were. So thank you so much for the illustrations. And I just want to sort of, before handing the floor to, giving the floor to Tashidema, I just want to say that, in all of these different presentations, I hope that the people who are here or who are eventually going to be viewing these videos see that we actually are trying to come at different ways of thinking about what it means to develop and how we can maintain resilience, whether that is resilience in systems, and we are talking of systems and infrastructures, processes, such as in organizations and institutions, or if we're talking about, as we will soon, the broader question of climate change and resilience, or community vitality, and through that, how we can maintain those bonds and carry them forward. And with the crops that we grow, as in one of the earlier papers. So this focus on what I found really valuable in this paper is personally this kind of focus on documenting the oral history and the narratives of the people, the vernacular narratives that are that can be missed. And the fact that I want, the reason I'm saying this is because, again, as with the other presenters, we would be very keen for you to work this into a paper for a volume. And with that in mind, these are some of the based on what your discussant would be saying, and the sorts of questions and reflections further, that there are interesting things, so many interesting things here. For instance, that the non-binary way in which people are opposed to animal sacrifice, like there's no it's not a human beliefs are not consistent on the same issue when in different domains, right? So normally people could be against animal sacrifice, but in the case of this ritual they are not. I thought that was really interesting, that because of what it relates to. And I have a suggestion for for what you might do, but I will in terms of working on this further for a paper, but we can come back to that later. I would like Tashidema, who is the discussant now, to offer her reflections on the paper. Tashidema, please. Thank you so much.
Good evening, everyone, for those of us following from Bhutan. And based on where you're based, good morning and good afternoon. We know that this live research conference is made possible through the collaboration of Center for Bhutan, Center for Local Governance and Research here in Thimphu, and Center for Study of Democracy in Westminster University in London. Thank you, Dr. Nitasha. Thank you, Dr. Tarchin and Dr. Sangi Khandu, and also everyone involved for making this live conference possible and for giving us this opportunity to listen to a lot of research findings. Thank you, Kezang sir, for the interesting presentation. I am sure that everyone following this live session must have found it interesting. I should say that it is very educative. As Bhutanese, we all have special connections to this kind of rituals. In Thimphu itself, Changangal Hagang and Dichinful Hagang is flooded with people on daily basis. People come there to seek blessings, and in fact, we take our children, like as young as newborns, to these monasteries. And even in other parts of the country, we take newborns to monasteries where it is supposed that it's a residence of the local guardian. We do that mainly to seek blessings and seek protections. And this kind of practices emphasizes on the importance of local guardians and deities in our daily lives. As a reporter who traveled extensively within the country, I have traveled to most pockets, rural pockets of the country, and I have written many stories on how we invoke our local deities and guardians for everyday peace, prosperity, and happiness. I have also written stories on how development brings painful transformation on the conduct of such rituals. And then I can really connect when Sir highlighted on how now people are not seeing it as a burden, but it is seemingly a burden. And also I have written many stories on how these vanishing cultures like this impact lives. Through our daily practices, we know that Monism and Buddhism are like two sides of the coin. As a daughter of a born practitioner in my own locality, I have special connections to these rituals because my father raised 8 of us conducting this kind of rituals. So I would take this opportunity to take Kezang sir and your co-researcher for documenting an important culture of Khagochen in Dagana. Like Dr. Nitasha said, documenting such oral traditions are very important because once we know that through your presentation, we understand that if the practitioner there dies, then the traditioner dies with him. And we have many places in the country where such practices had to be discontinued because there is no practitioner. So I would also like to thank Kezang sir for documenting this and also for letting us know about this vibrant culture in Khagochen. Like you mentioned, such rituals help in the community vitality, where everyone of all the communities community members would come together, and people take turns to share the responsibilities. Even in the times when people had very limited resources, they had conducted the rituals, and I feel that it is very important for us to preserve this kind of rituals. There are many such festivals in the country. Almost all villages have their own rituals containing strong pre-Buddhist practices. And Bhutanese, we have always revered nature, and through Kezang sir's presentation, I think it affirms that the religious and local beliefs could support and complement our environment conservation, because we understand that in Khagochen, when they revere the lake there, people would pay respects, and they would also, I hope that people there clean the lake when they are going around the lake, they would feel that special connection and give importance to the environment around them. The presentation, Kezang sir's presentation, I think it talks about how people still makes animal sacrifices. So we understand that people there had stopped for a year and tried to replace it with egg, but then people again continued it for their own reasons. So I just feel that when we talk of the sustainability of such rituals, and also when we talk of stopping this kind of animal sacrifices, I wish and hope that the Dzongkhag officials, the local government officials, or culture office for that matter, and also the people from Khagochen, educated people from Khagochen, if they would encourage the people there to stop animal sacrifices, because if there are many other communities where initially where animal sacrifice was practiced and then it has stopped, but the communities are still thriving and they are still conducting the rituals, making other kind of offerings like cheese, butter, egg. The classic example is the Apchundu appeasing ritual in Ha, where people initially sacrificed to yak, but they stopped it, and it's still Habs are still continuing it without animal sacrifice. In my own locality, I know that initially people used to conduct animal sacrifice once in 3 years. In people of representatives from almost 14 villages in my community would gather in my village and they would conduct an animal sacrifice. But people had long time stopped it. I'm not an expert on it, but my little understanding of all this as a daughter of a born practitioner and also my little study of all this on all these things, I understand that animal sacrifices are considered as binnak. So it's almost equivalent to black magic or sorcery. And since His Holiness Daji Khenpo issued a kasho to stop animal sacrifices, many communities in the country had stopped it. And I am sure that if we do that, yeah, if the local government, if the culture office, or if the Dzongkhag authorities, or for that matter, civil servants in the locality, I think if you all could encourage the people there to stop it, I know intervening and telling them this is wrong is not a good idea. I understand that because I come from a rural community myself. I understand the cultural sensitivity. But in explaining to them, giving the examples, I think would help the people. And I think the presentation, Kezang Sir's presentation, highlighted a very pertinent issue in the country about rural-urban migration, how rural-urban migration is threatening the preservation of such important culture, and then how youth are no longer taking interest in it. And also on how once this practitioner, or Nipchemi as it is called in this Sir's presentation, once he dies, how this old cultural practice would stop. Many local communities face the same problem. In my own village, again, I have to use my own village because my father is 76 years old. And no one in my family or in the village is taking interest to conduct the Ben ritual. So I have been encouraging my brother and my nephews to take it up, to learn the important cultural practice. But on the positive side of it, we do have Florian Foundation's Dr. Kamafunso's project, Shejun it is called, and then they document all these kind of practices. So Kezang Sir had documented it had conducted a research and documented it in a paper form. But then Shejun documents it through they document and they digitalize it. So I wish and hope that Kezang Sir and others who are following this live session from the community would encourage the local communities there, the Dzongkhag officials there, the local government officials, and also the culture office in Dagana to collaborate with Shejun so that this kind of very important cultural aspects are documented and digitalized so that so later on when there are people who are interested to do it, they could take it up. In other parts of the country, we have many incidences where now, because people are not taking interest in Ben Che or Bonism or this kind of cultural practices, lay monks, they conduct the rituals, but then I think it's while they conduct, or if Kezang Sir could shed us some light later on your thoughts on how if laymen could, if layman conducts this kind of rituals. And also, if possible, if you could preservation, engagement of local government, because right now we understand that local government has huge resource allocation, and then if how they could use some of the resources for the preservation or conservation of this kind of rituals. I think I would take this opportunity to encourage everyone following us live today to encourage your folks, our family members back home to conduct this kind of rituals, and not to let the people in the villages feel it as a burden, but to let them know the importance of cultural preservation of this kind of practices. These practices, like as also had pointed out, defines us as Bhutanese, and it plays an important role in our national identity. And I would really like to thank Kezang sir. Like Dr. Nitasha said, I understand that you're not an anthropologist, or you're not as such, you are a teacher, but then because of your interest in research, you conducted this. I hope you continue documenting many such important cultural histories of the country. Thank you so much, and thank you everyone. Thank you Center for Local Governance and Research, and thank you for Center for Study of Democracy for giving me this opportunity. Thank you, and Tashidale.
Thank you so much, Tashi. I would, I don't see any questions. So I just also want to come back to what I had said, a few things. So, Kezang, if I may call you that, the really interesting part of your paper to me, as so when you create knowledge, right? For instance, in this case about the ritual, when you create knowledge, there are different ways that can play a role in the world. And one aspect of that is to, is the documentation for its own sake as an archive. Another might be to think about possibilities of reform. And of course, there are different, sections of policy organizations, NGOs, media that do that. So here, what my remarks to you are from more of a research perspective. So I'm trying to think of, how as someone who is in an education related profession and who has been thinking and writing about this with your colleague, how can you take this further in order to make it into a publishable research paper, and for that I think it's and as many people here might who are already online might know, the journey of even a single journal article is often 2 years, because you start from an idea, then you work on it, then you send it out to your peers, or you present it at a forum like this, then you get feedback on it, then you rework it, and then it finally makes it through in a published forum. But the advantage of that, it takes a long time to get a research paper, and I'm not saying this one will take as long, by the way. We hope to have an edited collection much sooner. But what I'm saying is that journey of research needs to be appreciated more for the knowledge that it creates, because that output that you produce then stays there and provides research. If you take the word and split it, it's research. So what you have searched, another person coming after you redoes those searches and builds on it. So we all stand on the shoulders of giants. And in that sense, I think your paper is really interesting as a first step. As I said, that when writing this up into an article or a book chapter, if you begin from speaking about the history, so you give us the historical context, as you did with the images of the of the stairway, and of the images from the time of the three penlopes, and then you tell us why this ritual is important. So there are hundreds of rituals, thousands of rituals actually. So what I saw you as saying is that what's interesting about this ritual is the community, the livelihood aspect of it, right? All rituals are associated with community, but the livelihood aspect. So please, that focus I really liked. And then you draw attention to the reform. So as Tashi also just mentioned, where did this, given that local government officials don't have a role, so tell the person who doesn't know, where does this initiative for reform come from? Where did it come from? What were the sorts of reasons why they wanted to do away? And what does that tell us about the gradual evolution societally as a whole? And I think personally, I would really want to know if you could sort of, I don't know, tabulate or get together, what are some of the other livelihood related specific rituals in that region or elsewhere. So if you just have, like, if you obviously cannot tabulate all, but if you find main livelihood related rituals, specifically livelihood related, and then if you then look at that and then you see, well, were there attempts to reform some of those sacrifices in the others, in some of the others that might have involved sacrifices, did they succeed, and what determined which ones they were able to be reformed and which ones weren't able to be reformed around the question of animal sacrifice. And so that could be sort of one really interesting comparative explanation, because good explanations come in many ways, but one way of getting to that is to contrast. We take different cases and then we see, okay, what's the, why is the interface so different? So that would be really interesting for as you develop and work on this research. And I think that the the perception of the participants, I mean, I know this is not your PhD, but as someone who has taken these steps towards research, take it further, speak to the people who are participating. You said that the dancers on day 2, the people who are conducting the with due permission, of course, and with having let them know what you are doing, what you intend to do, and all that after doing that in an ethical manner. But it would be really interesting to know what the perceptions of the people who are taking part in it are, the different kinds of, in the different roles, and those who are witnessing or those who don't come. So I think there's a lot of incredible amount of potential here to build from this into into much more into much bigger research that you can do to illuminate this specific ritual. Beyond the documentation, which of course is important, and which you and also of many other organizations, as Tashidema just mentioned, are doing that. But as a social scientist and as a researcher, you can also tell us something more. You can shed light on trying to find out what are the perceptions of the people, what were the initiatives for reform comparatively, where did the reform succeed. And it's very fascinating, because it tells us development is not just about, it's about a lot of things, but it's also about how we go from how development is about how people relate to each other as well, how our environments change. And in that sense, these rituals are really important. So thank you very much. And I want, because we have been speaking about your work, I think before moving on to the next session, I would certainly like to give you the opportunity, in case you have something that you want to say just now. And then after you have done that, we will go to our next paper. That is a presentation by Yonten Chopel on prevention and mitigation of climate change. And for the discussant for that paper, we would have Dr. Sonam Vanchu. And we are, of course, most grateful and looking forward to the papers to come, and for the papers that have just been presented. So before going to that, Kezang, I just wanted to know if you had anything that you wanted to say in response.
Okay, thank you, Doctor. Thank you very much. And also Ms. Tashidemala. Actually, you could put all the perspectives that I tried to, which I actually miserably failed. And thank you for doing that for me.
Kezang, you should not, absolutely, you did not even remotely fail. You succeeded in a very big way. Please do not.
Thank you for the compliments, Doctor.
No, seriously, I genuinely, honestly mean this, because it's a great success to get people to think about something, and you have made us all think about it. It's such a complex issue that, and that because, we all know about, in a sense, we all use the internet, so we know something about the digital world, but we are not all engaged in ritual, especially not in the ritual you are talking about. So this is the whole point of this. It's not, this conference, you would note that I'm not being like super strict with time limits. Why? Because I think that as an early career researchers conference, the important thing is not if we have 100 people in the room. The important thing is that the people who are presenting their work feel that they are really adding value to what they are doing, and to be able to take that further, which is why I'm actually giving specific feedback about how to make this into academic kind of papers for the volume to be together, because I'm also thinking of the book that your work can all be a part of. So please do not even remotely think that your paper was hugely a success. And I mean, I see are you in a staff room or something at at school?
Yes, please.
Exactly. So you're doing this, out of the goodness of your heart in the staff room of a school, and not as somebody who's doing a PhD in anthropology. So we are most grateful, and your paper is very successful. Please do not. Honestly, I'm not just being diplomatic. Your effort is meaningful, and you can definitely take this further by way of research. Please go ahead.
Okay, thank you, Doctor. That was my show of genuine respect, actually, gratitude also. So I really felt that way. So I genuinely am thankful for both of your remarks and comments, which I definitely will try to work along with my co-author. And regarding rural-urban migration, cultural, and with also collaborating with cultural office in the district with regard to the animal sacrifice, and also contacting Shijin or all those. So I will also try my best, and I'll keep those in my minds and try to the best of my ability to make those actually, if I can actually happen. So also with regard to the collaboration with local government, which I've actually said before, that they have no roles in this ritual, but as a person, not as a the writer or as a the researcher of this paper, not exactly researcher also, but still then I feel there could be some ways out, as both the doctor and Madam actually pointed out. But it would have been a biased opinion if I had actually, as a person, commented on this rather than just presenting the paper. So that was the reason I actually skipped talking on that. But there could definitely be some ways in which I, as actually suggested, I will definitely work on that. And as per the future of the paper, and also because everything has the capability of going deep in the future and impacting a lot in the society, as my the topic is very much relevant with regard to the community. That I have to think, because as far as now, I have not had even a slightest of plan to take it to any forum or maybe like to publish it. But as I've actually made it out clear in the beginning of my presentation, that I purely did it because of my curiosity and also for my interest, which I actually saw taking place in the community I live in. So that was the reason, and I will definitely, if given chance, I'll definitely take that forward. And lastly, I would be very much, I'm very much thankful for the opportunity to the organizer and also to both the commenters. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Kezang. Sorry, we had a little bit of a tech glitch there for a moment, but thank you so much for your presentation. And yes, we would certainly be interested in receiving your paper and in developing it through the peer review process for publication. I think that there's definitely a lot of potential here, and we are most grateful to you for taking part and for sharing your research with us.